Hey, self-care challenge day 3, right? Round 2, day 3. Looking on my phone again so I can share these out to the groups real quick. Come on, Facebook. Bring me on. Says we're live. Facebook and I do not have that loving relationship going on here. Okay, here we go. So in my acronym for self-care, today is the letter L for love. And it's solar plexus chakra healing. So you might think of love in the heart chakra, which, yes, of course. However, I wanted to bring into our awareness having that love for self, right? Part of the self care challenge. So having some love for ourselves, some love and compassion, taking care of us. Again, not in the gross, icky way, but in a way that just takes care of us in the way that we need to be taken care of, because any one of us that are trying to show up and help other people, any one of us who feels like we're an empath or empathic healer or a light worker or a helper or a caregiver, all the different roles that we may have, um, we can wear ourselves thin, right? When we don't take care of ourselves, we can burn ourselves out, we can deplete our own energy, and then we are no good to anyone, right? So there is our challenge. And again, when you deal with things like burnout and you deal with things like depression and anxiety, some things that can also come up are suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideations, and even actions, right? So I still believe, and I'm working to share this daily, this perspective, this concept, this statement that I truly believe in is that if we all love ourselves enough, then suicide wouldn't be a thing, right? Wouldn't even exist. It just wouldn't be a thing. So how amazing that would be. Again, not the icky, kind of gross self-love that we're conditioned to believe is so wrong. Not the egoic self-love that is out to harm other people or even ourselves and calling it love or self-love, because that's not really either. But just a way that we can appreciate ourselves, that we can see a level of value within ourselves, a purpose of our being, um, and showing up in a way to be that best version of you. So I have the acronym of BEST You, right? So BES. S for today and best you is our self-image. So consider that for a minute. Our self-image is really just how we see ourselves. It's when we say, I am, and we start to give our descriptive words, what does that look like? How did we just label ourselves? How do we see ourselves? Do we show up in the same manner that we see ourselves? So do we show up as that best version of you, your best you? Like as in our highest self. So many of us on our spiritual journeys or our spiritual awakenings, we start to have that separate perspective or point of view, not separating ourselves, but looking at ourselves from two different points of view between our human ego self versus our soul, spirit, higher self, right? Seeing more of that higher purpose for our being. Might get noisy for a second, sorry. Timing. Can you get it? Sorry. Little one. She had to run out the door and it sticks. Anyways, so the two different aspects of self, if you will. So then we go on this journey where we talk about ego death and killing the ego, and I have a perspective about that. I don't believe we kill the ego or that there's necessarily ego death. I think that's just kind of a word to say that that part of the self-image, when ego humanness self is our complete image of ourself, right? Complete self-image, that part dies, if you will. We break that image up, we break that perspective up, and we release that. Nothing's really dying other than just shedding the old, basically, and opening ourselves up for that expansion. I just saw 4:44 on the clock, just saying. Incorporating, being more mindful and aware of our highest self, that we are more than just a human being. We are more than just our ideas of who we are, what we are. as individuals and as a collective, right? How often do we pay attention and focus on things that are outside of us and not look within us? Which has to do a lot with ego as well. It's a way for ego to avoid itself. Because when we look at ego, oftentimes that's when we have to go, oh, I did that. I think I shared with something with Iona earlier about, being a witness to something as I was observing something I was seeing on Facebook actually. Just people's comments and, intentions sometimes are really, really good. But what's being said or how we present ourselves, it's like, oh, that's kind of icky. That doesn't feel so nice from this perspective, from this point of view, right? And then you can see yourself going, I did that. I used to do that too. Ew. And then, so owning it, aware, assess, and align, being aware of it, seeing it, assessing it. So owning it, right? Seeing that that is something I had done in the past. However, it's something I've changed. I'm changing the presentation because I see that how the action appears, how it took place, isn't in alignment with the intention behind it, right? So how I presented it didn't align with my intention of it, with my values in it. So now I can align or realign and really pay attention to my wordings and my presentation, how I say something, how I offer something, how I show up, right? Hey, love, there she is. I was just talking about a conversation we had. There's Iona. Can you please shut that door? I know it gets sticky. Sorry, excuse me one second. Give it a good push, and it might jam in there a little bit to stay shut. Don't slam it, just shut it, and then don't slam it. Shut it and push a little. Push, push. There you go. Good enough. It should stay shut. Thank you. Sorry. Hi, Iona. How you doing? Little distraction there. I have to work on the door. I'm going to try to block and then move us this way just a little bit, and go ahead. You can get up there. Iona says, I will catch the replay to hear. No worries. No worries. Thank you. I'm very glad to hear that. Me too. Me too. Thank you for being here. So I was just kind of sharing that, be the aware, assess, and align, and being the observer of as we see things, and when we go through that whole awakening and seeing that we are more than just a human, or more than our ego, or more than our self-image that we have created in our own mind, and how sometimes that aligns with our intentions and sometimes it doesn't. There's a part of ourselves that we don't always see, or we see it with one lens, but we don't see the whole picture. We know how we meant to show up or how we intend to show up, but it's not always how we actually show up, right? So Iona, I was using, without giving like any details, what I shared with you, what I saw on Facebook, right? Just comments, and then seeing how I used to do the same thing. And sometimes our intentions are so well, but how we present it doesn't align with the intentions. So being in that observer mode of ourself and our self-image and our human and our humanness, but meeting ourselves with that love and compassion and not beating ourselves up with blame, shame, and guilt, right? Just being aware, just noticing that it's there, seeing it for what it is, assessing and realizing that it's not feeling like it's in alignment, and so we can then align with it. Iona says truth, right? Oh yeah, right, right. So again, I didn't give any major detail to it, but it was a great time for that example. Things show up as they should. So let me see, where did I leave off? I did make notes and then I jumped ahead of myself, and I think I'm doing well on that so far. So also being aware that how we create our self-image, so we have our life experiences, we have our perspective of those experiences, we have programs and conditions, right? So we have other people telling us what things mean and who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to be and all of those things, right? We're kind of taught as children how to be the good person or the good kid or whatever that may be. So that's really my awareness lately as I'm, with my granddaughter and my grandson, my kids too, but as they're grown now, it's just a different perspective. But how we create that self-image, and then as we learn and build on that throughout our years, right? So I'm not a spring chicken anymore. not old, but just saying I have more and more, as the years continue to go by and as I can now be more observant of them, and we can change some of those things. So I can remember a time in my life where I just assumed that I am who I am kind of thing, right? Like, this is just me and this is just how I am. And like, there's no changing it. And not that we all need to change, but sometimes we see things or qualities in ourselves that maybe we want to change. And weird, we can. I say that sarcastically because I didn't know for a long time, but we actually can. Our self image, our personalities, um, just certain things about ourselves. There are some things like that are very deep and like the foundation of who we are. But there's a lot of things that we internalize and own and take on and claim to be that thing, and we're not necessarily, right? We're not necessarily. Another great example I'm going to use is the whole smoking thing, right? When I used to smoke cigarettes, I identified as a smoker. Like that was just me as a person. That was my personality. That's who I was, right? It became a huge part of my personality and my lifestyle and the things that I did and my actions, but it wasn't me as a person. It didn't identify who I was, right? Now I am a non smoker. I'm still the same person in many ways. Some things change, but in many ways as I was when I smoked cigarettes, right? Like, it's not our identification is my point. It's not who we are, it's something we do. So we can make that initial shift in itself. For me, that was a great start in a lot of my healing processes is being able to really determine what is me, identifying with it, internalizing it, being a part of it versus what is it? Is it something I do? And sometimes it's a thing I do that I want to change, like smoking. I wanted to change that, right? And I was able to change that because it wasn't me as a person. It wasn't something, even hair color I can change, right? I could probably change the moles on my face if I wanted to go through the whole surgical process to do it, which I don't. Um, there are certain things about our physical bodies we can change, right? Doesn't have to be who we are. Not sure why all that came up, but it did for a reason. Iona says, I am still a spring chicken. I love it. You have a big spring in your step. I love it. I open FB and here you are. Awesome. It's funny because I got on my phone, as I have been now that I use StreamYard to stream into 3 different places. And I refreshed, a few times on Facebook so I could see the live to share it into a couple groups while I'm live. And it just wasn't showing. I had to go to my profile specifically and scroll down and I finally saw it so that I could share it. Like, how funny. The last couple days, I was able to just come right on and it only took a few seconds and I would show on the homepage or the feed to be able to share it. But today was not the day. Facebook's like, no, I'm not feeling it today. Go digging. But I did. So it's interesting. I see that you're here on YouTube and on Facebook. So thank you for that. So those different aspects of self, our self-image, and then incorporating, right? So as we go through that spiritual journey and we're seeing the other aspects of ourself or that higher self, as we often call it, our soul, our spirit, and being open to that, pulling that in more, feeling the difference in the vibration and the energy and the frequencies, right? To be able to move through those different energies, to be in those different spaces sometimes. For me, learning about the 7 chakras, really learning about the 7 chakras and incorporating that. And that's where like Best You came up. I couldn't have created that without the journey itself, right? It just drops in for my level of understanding. Same with this new acronym for self care. I started a self care challenge. Was it 2 years ago, Iona? I believe I called it, what did I call it? It was a 7 assessments. So it's funny, assessment is still a part of the process, right? And it was self care every day, I think, for empaths and light workers, something like that. But some of the things were a little bit different, still incorporated, just in a different way. Excuse me, and I don't think they were in line with the 7 chakras at the time. I wasn't making those connections at the time, where now we have like I feel like we have all these acronyms. And Iona talked about this a little bit in her live earlier today too. Like we have these acronyms and they blend and merge together so well that it almost seems like one. And then in a sense it is like one big process, if you will, with all of our pieces that combine. So when like I mentioned earlier, the best you today is about self-image with self-love, the L for love, having that love for ourselves, right? Not in the icky way, but for ourselves. And Iona in the Soul Legacy Academy talks about emotional freedom. If my thought patterns and my self-image is so low and so icky and so critical and so gross, the emotions that come along with all of that energy is not emotional freedom, right? It's just not. So when I can have love for self, when I can be a little gentler on myself, when I can ease up a little bit, be mindful, be the observer, make those choices, assess my situations, align with my highest self, align with the way that feels more like I'm in integrity with myself, with my values, right? That helps bring that emotional freedom, doesn't it? Being able to observe, there's that statement again from past, right? Observe, don't absorb. That's emotional freedom. Even when we're feeling other people's stuff, to be able to shift and be detached from it in a sense. I don't mean avoid and run and block it all out. I just mean detach ourselves from it in a sense, to have that awareness that this energy I'm feeling isn't mine. And that's okay. And now I can manage it and work with it and do whatever you choose to do with it now that I'm aware that it's not mine. Because back in the day when I wasn't aware that it wasn't mine and I thought all of it was mine and I was taking it all in and then I internalized all of that stuff and then it created more of my self-image and it all just felt more heavy and gunky and gross and there was more depression and more anxiety and more of all the icky things. That's not emotional freedom, right? So it all blends and melds together really, really well. Another rant. Sorry, let me come back up here. This is funny, yes. I know, right? I just set my Mac back up and my self-image just matched again. Oh, that's awesome with my new desk. This is beautiful. I can't wait to see the next picture. Did you send it already? I haven't looked on my phone. Yeah, I can do my soul work again. I know, right? Isn't it exciting? It's so amazing. And it's interesting, and you've shared some of this before, so I hope you don't mind I share it again. As you were making the shift from moving out of your home as a digital nomad, and you had just gotten that desk not so long ago, right? So to let that go, not having any idea at that point in time that now, right, a new chair and desk presents itself that really fits with where you're at right now. And it's just beautiful, isn't it? When we have that trusting. When you have that trusting and you just flow with it, it's so amazing. Yeah, 2 years ago now. I know, right? 7 assessments. And they're still pertinent. Like I know they're still coming in. It's just interesting how it all comes together in the journey. Now it's energetic self-care. It really is, right? It really is because it aligns with the 7 chakras. It aligns with best you. It aligns with the 7 freedoms. I just love it. Oh my goodness, it is like one. I feel blessed. Me too. And we couldn't have planned it any easier, because we didn't plan it at all. It just, as we go on and things, we become aware or just open, even before the awareness. Like there's just this openness that allows things to drop in, and then we pay attention when it does. Iona says, I'm not down with all the letters for your days yet, but all the pieces resonate so much. No worries. No worries. There's a lot of them, right? And yeah. And I'll send a thing to you too. It might be helpful. I will remember and take notes now. I have a workspace. Again, no worries. And it comes up in conversation, right? And it's funny that sometimes I think we speak to it and don't even realize that like it just came out of our mouths, which is cool. I love how it flows, and I think it's really cool when it does that. I'm blending my sentences again. That's big, the energy that isn't ours. It is, right? Oh my goodness. And the kind of energy when I reflect back, and again, not in a way of getting sucked into the past kind of thing, but in that observer mode, when I think back of like my family and the kind of energy I grew up in and all the, ooh, man, it was a lot. Rants are so good. They are, aren't they? Like I hear yours and I pay attention to yours and then my own as well, and things come out. And then if I come back and watch the replay and it's like, okay, Sometimes in those moments, it's just it goes through you and you're not even sure it makes sense or not, but it does. It always does. Pics coming. Fantastic. I can't wait to see. Share away. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. So yeah, it took me a minute to realize what you were saying, share away too. So thank you for letting me share that. Yep, cost me hundreds for that desk, right? And who would have known then that now it would be all where it is? It's amazing. I just jacked up my screen and all. There we go. The old one gave it to the charity shop, right? But got something back in return. That energy exchange that again you didn't even know was going to come back around. Pick taken, fantastic. And sent. Thank you. I'll be checking soon. Exactly. Wonderful. Oh, I love it. Thank you for being here. So how are we doing? I think I actually covered everything, you guys. So in the journaling process, that's a lot to pay attention to. It really is. Don't over focus on all of it or any of it, right? We're just looking at points. We're taking one day at a time. We'll come back to it again next week. Next Wednesday, we'll look at these things again. We'll see where we were this week, where we are next week. Are there what else comes up? Like, I love that we have the system that we follow. We journal through these things each and every day. We reflect on them again for the past week, and over and over. It's a consistent, it's a healthy habit. It's a journaling process, and there's still different things that will come in and drop in each time, which is great for me because I don't like repetition. My confession. Um, and I'm actually journaling on that itself because I'm aware that we all learn through repetition. We all do. We are habitual creatures as human beings, which is repetition. That's what habits are. It's repetition. So I am allowing myself to be open and observing what is it that I don't want to say triggers me, but why is there resistance? Like, where does my resistance come from when it comes to repetition, right? Because it's a thing. And I have some ideas already, but I'll wait till more of the pieces come together and I will share them with you. Anna says, makes sense to me. Fantastic. Thanks for letting me know that. I don't know if you're still here. It says you bounced off, but that's okay. Thank you for being here. So again, as we go through this repetitive process of journaling, of checking in, what we're repeating is the application of, what we're repeating is the healthy habit of checking in with ourselves. So what we're repeating then is self-care, which we all need and deserve, right? Which is exactly why we chose to show up and walk our talk and do this and share this and be supportive in your own self journey if you choose to do that and give yourself some self-care and self-love and live more intentionally as Iona teaches as well, right? Intentionally checking in with self on the daily, intentionally having these different areas in our lives to look at each week, right? Intentionally giving ourselves that self-care, that self-love, intentionally working to be the best version of ourselves and not to anybody else's what's the word I'm looking for? Because it's not to criticize ourselves or to feel criticized by anybody. It's not for anyone else to judge if we're being the best version of ourselves. It's just our own assessment, our own awareness, our own values, right? Is for us to say, if I look in the mirror today, can I look at myself and feel okay? Can I look at myself and say, I'm doing well today. I'm doing the best I can today. Maybe I fumble, maybe I fall, maybe I trip, maybe I screw up. Sometimes I reflect back and I'm like, ooh, that was pretty harsh. Like that was bad. Like I've got some owning up and some things to clear up right there, right? But to be able to do that process is amazing because when we can't do that process or when we don't do that process, then we hold on to that block and we build on that block, right? So that block of blame, shame, and guilt, that block of criticism, that block of start feeling unworthy and not good enough and blah, blah, getting stuck in that I fumbled and now I have to stay down kind of thought process. No, we don't. No, we do not, right? We own it, which doesn't always feel great, but we own it, we clear it, we heal it, we realign with it. And that just means being the best version of ourselves, intentionally making the difference for ourselves and others, right? Another rant. Let me come back. Sorry, I keep saying I think I'm done, and then I go on another rant. And it says, haha, repetition. I don't like it either, right? So I will share a little bit as I reflect, and I'm in my curiosity of like, where is my resistance coming from? I can hear my dad saying that like it was a bad, if he had to repeat himself, it was bad. Don't make him repeat himself kind of thing. And I think I parented in a similar way. Like, you heard me. I shouldn't have to repeat myself, right? I have to repeat myself because you're not paying attention. I have to repeat myself because you're being disrespectful. I have to repeat myself because, right? Like, there's a lot of icky old conditions or programs that came along with that concept or that idea or that connection. When in the way that we're talking about, the repetition has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with any of that. It just has to do with how we learn, right? Just part of the learning process. But again, in my head, because of those old triggers and those memories being in those layers of my energy field, right? It's making the connection in a resistant type of way. So it's just healing and clearing through that and shifting that definition and that meaning of repetition. Hmm. Had to come out. This is, go figure, with the business model that is so repetitive. But that's why it works though, right? It's why it works. And let's use this one because it just popped in my head in this moment. Keep it simple. Repetition also allows us to keep it simple. We don't have to keep finding a new thing. We don't have to keep what's the word? Reinventing the wheel. We don't have to keep doing that. And as we're repetitive and as we apply and as we use and do and have the action involved with it in that repetition, and life, still life, right? That was like the subject of life, still verb, lives, and things still happen in our lifetime. Things come in differently. So we're still applying with the repetitive intentions and repetitive process and the repetitive system, but it's with different stuff. And that's where I was going with this. Is I think it makes it a little easier for me in my resistance to repetition to be aware and realize that even in the repetition, there are new things that come along. So just like those layers and the different things in our layers, there's different stuff that comes up. So even though it's repetitive, it's not like repeating the same sentence over and over again. It's repeating the process. So within that process, there's still differences, which makes it a little more new and exciting, if you will. That makes sense. You're still here. See, and it showing me a 0, but that's okay. At least we have 7 areas. Truth, right? So it's different ones each day as well. And then we just come back to review each day. But again, new things come up. So because life is life, I love it too. Not gonna lie. Bring it intentionally. Truth, right? Because when we don't, we get lost. Like I've tried to do, confessing, I have tried to like journal in my head, which occasionally is okay. But if I let it just go to that, then I don't really journal, meaning my mind might cycle in a thought and then it just gets on a hamster wheel. So it doesn't get to move all the way through. Whereas if I intentionally journal and I go through these processes, I check on the awareness, I assess it, and then I align it, then I'm moving through. It's not that cycle of the hamster wheel, right? It's a path. It might twist, but it's still a path. I'm still moving forward, moving through it. And it says, I hear and feel that process. Yeah, right? It sure is. I love you, billions. I love you, billions. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being with me and showing me this process and getting me started on the intentional living codes and supporting me through them. Love the rants. Good, because I apparently am going to have a few of them today. I don't like boring. Exactly. I don't either. And sometimes that repetition is boring. You know what? I'm going to back up here and maybe someone will listen as I say this. I wanted to get her attention because in the teaching earlier with Miss Melanie, I don't want you to show yourself, but I just want you to hear me for a minute, okay? Um, Sorry guys, I'm keeping her off camera. Um, and in the teaching process today, I heard her, and she didn't apparently intend to do it this way, but the way she was explaining some things, she was talking about, herself, her experiences and her learning. For those of you who don't know, I help with her homeschooling. And then she'll talk about her friend who, I'll just say like her dad's girlfriend's child who lives in the house, who's about the same age, I think slightly younger than Mel. but how they do better at this math process, or they're quicker with their math facts kind of thing. So just kind of talking to her about, well, you don't have to be fast, right? I get it. Sometimes it's like that game and you race and you challenge or whatever, and you see how quickly you can get through it. But I explained to her then that things like math facts, that you memorize them and then you just repeat them. So you memorize and repeat and memorize and repeat. And the more that you memorize and repeat, the faster you can get, right? There's that repetition that gets boring. However, when you can move through a process, you're actually, in my opinion, from my perspective, learn more because you've expanded beyond just the memory and the repetition. You're learning then how to actually think about a situation, move through a process, learn like a steps in something. Or as we were watching, and I was watching her in another subject, it posed a question. She wasn't sure about the answer, and she knew how to go look for the answer, right? How to research that answer, how to find that answer, how to take those steps. She wasn't stuck because it wasn't in her memory. She knew how to do the process to find it. And to me, that's what I think we need to learn more of, right? Because it's those processes that help us along the way. So, another just a little rant on Miss Mel, but I wanted to give her kudos because she did a really, really good job at that. And I was really proud of her knowing how to move through that process. And that then isn't boring because we can apply it to so many different things, right? It's not just memorizing something and spilling it out. So thanks for listening to that too. Iona says, oh, wow, yeah, the repeating in kids. Yeah, right? I mean, it's a way that we learn. But then again, it's not just that, right? It's not just learn A to know B and A and B and A and B and A and B. It's what about A? And if A does all these different things that life likes to do, then what could happen with B? And then what are our options? And what are some other processes and so forth? The meaning might apply to me. I lost myself because of the rant, so my apologies. That is why it works, and it was what I needed to not go off on mad tangents. I got you, right? Yes, to have that intentional process. The process is lit. Agree, 1,000,000%. And all the pieces in it. I've been here the whole time, apart from sending pics. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. I don't pay as, like you said, I don't pay as much attention to numbers that it shows on here anymore because I don't feel they're legitimate. Which I also had a laugh. This is another old reflection, but it reminded me of it. There was a meme or something shown. I think it was maybe Facebook, but I think it was reflecting on Facebook. And it said something like, when Facebook says you're online and it shows like the little green light or something that shows when you're active on Facebook, supposedly. And then it's like me, and it has the picture of, I don't remember what the character was, but it was like in bed sleeping. Like, and that's about true. I can remember going through that before where people assumed I was online. And I'm like, and I wasn't. Like, I wasn't even touching my phone, but apparently it showed I was online on Facebook, and vice versa. I thought the same for other people, and they weren't. So it's like the internet isn't, sometimes we rely on its information a little too much, and it's just not accurate, even in those aspects. You are so welcome. Thank you. Thank you. I taught my great niece the memories. Math. Yeah, like math is a good one because it does come in handy, especially the basics, like your addition, your subtraction, multiplication and stuff, the math facts. But then later on, you get into some things like formulas and whatnot, right? So you can still use the basic math because you need that to do the processes. But that ability to learn how, like for me in formulas, I have had a tendency to skip steps for some reason. Like I could know a formula and thought I knew what I was doing, but at some point I go back to check it, it's wrong, and it's because I miss a step. I don't know why. I never did figure that out. But I like that she can do a process too, which it's not just that, right? It's not just the memorization. It's being more of like that critical thinking and knowing how to move through the process, which is so stinking cool. Which I know is what you're going to agree with me, but she's amazing. The process is huge. I taught my niece to memorize the process. Yeah, I love that, right? Yeah, because we need to know the steps. We need to know the how-tos. Exactly. I think in relationships, that green light is not helpful. Oh, true. Right. True. Because then you're like, And then if you're not admitting it, then why are you hiding it and lying about it? And yeah, all those assumptions can come into play, can't they? I know they had for me, so it wasn't great. But it's almost better for me, I think, to not have the stinking apps. What's up, baby? Wait till I'm done for that one, okay? Thank you. I'm almost done. Ah, gotta wait till I'm done for that one, okay? Thank you. Impatience. You know, for an impatient person to try to teach someone patience is very interesting. Tell me that's not a mirror, right? That's funny. All right, you guys, I will stop with the rambles. I think we've done very, very well today in talking about our self-care, our self-image, our having love for self, our emotional freedom. My voice is feeling all kinds of weird. My self-love movement. I did remember to mention that earlier today, Iona, when I had said that I have a self-love movement. So I'm just going to repeat it because I believe that if we love ourselves enough, then suicide wouldn't be a thing, right? We wouldn't get to the point of burnout. We wouldn't get, and again, not blame, shame, and guilt, not criticizing or judging, because I think all of us do it or have done it at least once, if not many times in our life, but to bring it into our awareness, right? So we can assess where we're at, we can assess how we feel, and then we can realign or align to take better care of ourselves. So our homework for today for, excuse me, showing our self-love, our self-image, our highest self, to have that emotional freedom in our healing processes is, as always, check in with yourself. Use any of those areas that we talked about that you find that you got that resonate with you. It's like my language. That resonate with you or that you feel drawn to do. See what's in your awareness. Share what comes up for you. Is it where you want to be or not? Like, are you noticing the qualities that you absolutely love about yourself? Do you notice qualities that you might want to change? And if so, are you willing to commit to that? And do you know action steps you can take to change those patterns? Remember, our self-image are created by thought processes, habits. So if it's a thought that we've created into a habit because we repeat it, that repetition, right? That we can change our own programming about our self-image, about who we think we are, by changing our thoughts about it, putting into action and play and repeating that, right? And it does take time and we have to be consistent with it and be intentional with it, but we can do it. So if there is such a thing, what is that? You can share that too. So don't forget, in the groups, you can share a live or a post or a recording or a picture or whatever you would like to use to demonstrate or share your homework for the day. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm getting dry here and losing my voice. Let's see. Come back here and finish these. You know. Yep, patient. Yeah, I don't have those. I love you. Iona says bye, Mel. Bye. Could you hear her? She said bye. In her sweet little voice. Yep, self-love. Perfect. Thank you so much for being here again, Iona. Love you billions. Love you all. And I will see you tomorrow. So much love.